Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get started. It's going to be interesting. I did this 2 weeks ago in a 90-minute workshop, ran out of time. So I had 20 minutes. So this will be very, very interesting. It's actually only the second time I've spoken about this particular idea, the work that I'm working on. So it's going to be a whistle-stop tour. I'm around all day, so we can talk as much as you like about this afterwards. So I will try and get through as much of it as possible, because there are some really important things I want to say today. Now, as we know, those of us working in higher education, quick show of hands, working in higher education, lecturers, academic staff, whatever, okay. Student engagement is key phrase, key challenge facing higher education today. Metaphors abound through the discourse of student engagement. So we've got students as consumers, students as clients, students as partners. So this is actually changing the way we think and feel about how to engage in terms of teaching and learning, how we engage students, to be more student-centred in our approach. And what this is doing, it's going to fall to academic staff to facilitate this. Okay, so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about how that might work. So the basic premise of what the session I'm going to do today is, if we're going to effectively engage and empower our students through higher education, we need to first empower and engage our staff. The question is, who's going to engage our staff? It's a lonely life being an academic. Who is going to engage us? Okay, so I'm going to give a few thoughts as to how we might do that and show some evidence on some of the work I've been working on. I want to offer a different metaphor. A metaphor of journey. A metaphor that actually is implicit in everything that's gone before us today. If you were in Kate's talk just now, I think journey was there implicitly, if not explicitly, and certainly what Neil was talking about this morning, it is a more journey-like approach to creativity that he was talking about. I'm not here to talk about the learning journey as such, although it is about higher education. Learning journey to me is a bit too constrained, focuses on origins, destinations, delivery, supply and delivery mode of teaching and learning, and deals in a very traditional form of higher education, so an if-then. So if I do this, then I can do that. If I do this degree, I can get that job. What I want to suggest today is that we work with a more holistic notion of journey. So taking in not just the learning journey, but the journey through life, if you like, and the different experiences that allows us. Something quite poetic about that, I think, hence the title, which we'll get onto soon. It's more open-ended, more optimistic. We can take in things like contemplation, reflection, and a slower way of life. So I'm going to take a journey to be my working metaphor, okay, so to frame our discussion and to work with when we're engaging staff. Student learning journey really does emphasise fast learning, okay, so it's all about efficiency over effectiveness. How can I get from here to there in as quick a time as I can? Often brings about tunnel vision. Yeah, focusing on the product, I'm going to graduate in 3 years, I then want a job, and you are solely focused on that, taking no consideration as to what's happening around you. We need a slower mode of learning. Okay, so we need to slow learning down. And this is where I want to offer some thoughts. We slow it down, and when we're slowing the journey down, it becomes about not instrumental knowledge or instrumental focus, but it becomes about experience and experiential focus. And that's where I want to focus my attention. Oh, so a little bit of background just quickly. You've got an insight into what's going on next. That wasn't going to happen. My background, I'm a sports coach. I was a professional sports coach for about 10 years ago, and then ventured into academia by accident, and haven't been able to leave since. So I've been interested in journey in a developmental sense, not necessarily in a skills sense, but in a more holistically than that. My work's taken in, I've worked with actors, sports coaches, obviously teachers, and sports performers. And one thing I've been really interested in is this notion of journey within these contexts. Why do they journey on? Why do these people journey on? Why do they continue doing what they're doing? Often in the face of adversity or at least significant challenge. Well, many if not all of these people were adamant that it was about the experience for them. It was all about the quality of experience that they gained from what they did. And in particular, it was one particular experience. Anybody, hands up in the room, I'm sure you have, many people heard the concept of flow, hands up. Okay, just surprised that the majority have, that's great. So this notion of flow experience or optimal experience, coined by the guy that nobody can pronounce, Mahai, Csikszentmihalyi. And this experience is triggered by what's termed as a good fit between yourself, the individual, and the environment in which you find yourself in. More specifically, it's about balancing out the challenges of that situation or circumstance with your own perceived ability or skill. So it's all about fit and plausibility. So do my skills fit with the environment or the situation? And is it plausible in order to be effective in this space? This naturally leads into learning. Okay, this is something I've taken forward in my work and applied to my own teaching practice as well as work with people on their own. And it's predicated on this notion. It's a deeply enjoyable, intrinsically motivating experience. It's starting with the experience of enjoyment. Okay? So, with that in mind, on your 2 squares in a circle, piece of paper, I want you just quickly, if I might be so bold as to suggest that the circle with a smiley face is you being happy in your work. Okay, and I realise that might be controversial in a lot of cases, but if you're happy in your work, in that first box, can I please get you to write down, or you can draw. I really don't want to put any kind of structure on this at all. People get very self-conscious drawing, but okay, you can write if you want. I just laugh at your handwriting. What are you doing? Just quickly, 30 seconds, what are you doing? What are you doing at work when you're most enjoying what you do? Off you go, 30 seconds. Often not thinking about things too much is probably the most honest way to go about things here. Okay? So what are you doing? That deep sense of enjoyment. Do you get that from your work? And if you don't, then why not? But we'll get to that in a minute, okay? So if you can try and just capture that in some way, that would be great. We're going to use this to reflect in just a little while. And as you can imagine, there's also another opportunity to do something in box 2. I'm sure you're excited about that. Okay. So flow has been applied to education before, not in great depth, and particularly not in higher education, which is really quite an interesting niche to fill. It is about personal discovery, growth and creativity, and we can certainly here have done some work around the different conditions that need to be in place for flow to occur in the educational environment. Okay, so look, skill challenge again, relevancy of tasks, focusing on the learner, feedback, Neil spoke about feedback this morning, and constructing an environment that's enjoyable. Again, Neil spoke about that this morning, so this is not stuff that we haven't heard of before. This is probably the easiest way of me representing, and it is a famous, I'm not going to say any credit for this, this is Csikszentmihalyi's own work, famous representation. So, skill challenge axes, if you like, and the skills are too high, and the challenges are perceived too low, we experience anxiety. Now, consider when you're most anxious at your work, I'm sure there's a balance or an imbalance there in terms of skill challenge. Same can be said for boredom. When you're most bored, you've probably got more skills than is needed for that particular activity. You're probably going to find yourself down there. It's very, very simplistic. I know life's not this simple, but you get the idea. Flow will happen incrementally when the skills and challenge are in balance. And that's where growth, discovery, and creativity occur. The process of creativity is the product of this flow experience. Csikszentmihalyi has written a book all about creativity in 1997, talking to the then world-leading creative persons and leaders of the world, and this was kind of a common ground for them. But this is where I come in. Again, I'm not saying this is the best research, I'm not saying it's the only research, this is something that I've done that showed there to be more to flow than simply enjoying yourself straight away. Okay? If you think about it, flow, when you enjoy yourself, you often, it's not like a switch you flick on, you often have to build up to it, and you often have to reflect and try and understand why you enjoyed it in the first place to be able to do it again in the future. Well, My research with actors, with sports persons, with teachers, with coaches, showed that it's not an isolated experience at all. It's actually framed by phases of experience, if you like. So, of anticipation, preparation, reflection, and recollection. So, we have to be mindful of this process if we are going to recreate that sense of enjoyment, that deep sense of enjoyment, or increase the likelihood of finding flow again in our work. But more than that, remember we're talking about this notion of journey, this holistic sense of journey. So it's about orientation. So these people had an orientation to their work, which was broader. It wasn't a means to an end, tunnel vision orientation. It was an open-ended orientation. Okay, so we're talking journey in the open sense. So a dynamic feeling of confidence that the internal and external environments are structured and make sense. They are able to find resources that are available to them to allow them to continue forward in that particular domain. And it was intrinsically appealing enough. Yes, sorry.
That resources, is that internal or external resources?
Both. Both. It was meant plural. Sorry, I'm trying to... Yeah, it is both. It's the use of internal resources, but also the ability then to find external resources to help. So it's meant in both senses. Sorry, it wasn't clear. Yeah, the singular term, just assume it's plural. Okay, next stop. I realise I'm going very fast, okay? Remember, 90 minutes, 20 minutes, very, very, very difficult. The next box, square, square, smiley face. Okay, second square, you focus on what you're doing. Now, what is it in what you're doing that is enjoyable? So can you focus on the features of that particular activity? What is it that you enjoy about that activity? That's what you're doing, but what is it about the activity in particular that you really enjoy? What are the core features here? Again, you can draw, you can write down. I'm really not too bothered. How you best represent that. Okay, so I'll just talk over your writing, if that's it. We're going to come back to this in a moment. What I found from my research was it was actually about, it's funny you should mention about, is it personal resources or is it external resources? Well, actually, these guys, this body of people that I researched over a period of 5 years or so, said it was about the continued bringing to bear of personal resources onto challenging activities over a continued period of time. Yeah, so that's what it was for them. So that movement forward, the journeying on, this was a possibility for them. So it was about the bringing to bear of personal resources, developing as people, as individuals, over time. Okay, I've since developed, and this is very much a working model, okay? I'm not, again, professing this to be the state of things. This is a working model, and I'm hoping to get feedback in more than one way today, which we'll get to in a little while. So this, you've got this in front of you, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. But this orientation I've depicted in, like Neil said, we need some structure but not too much in this environment. So for an environment to be enjoyable and flow creating, if you like, there needs to be some form of structure and practice to your practice. It needs to be some kind of support, but also opportunity to seek out new things. But there also needs to be continuity and progression. So continuity in the sense that we need to be doing the same things for a while in order to master what we're doing, but also we need then the flexibility to be able to go and find new challenges and develop ourselves. Okay, so they're the three main environmental features of an enjoyable or flow-creating environment. More specifically, when that's focused down onto what it is we're doing, it's generally found that we've got seven conditions here for activities, whether these be learning activities, coaching activities, exercises, whatever. So focus on enjoyment, balance between skills and challenge, establish clear goals, feedback is timely, in the immediate sense, but also over time. Concentration is key. You've got to be able to concentrate on what you're doing. Let go of the ledge. There's got to be an element of control, so you can feel like you can try new things. It's a trusted environment, like Kate said just a little while ago. And these people seek out skill mastery and growth. It's not something that finds them, they seek it out. Okay, so this is the framework, I suppose, that I'm going to be using, I have used in 2 projects. One running 2 years ago, so this is Thinking Differently About Engagement. It's a HCA-funded project, working with academic staff on a staff engagement project. Highly controversial at the time. You know, staff be engaged, surely not. But I worked with staff, working with the framework that you have in front of you, to put together a programme of work where I looked at capturing staff journeys through an academic year and student journeys, their students on the same journey, running parallel. So devised a way of capturing this journey through reflective blogs with staff and students, and guided dialogue. So after this, the feedback from blogs throughout the year would be periodically brought together by me. I'd go and talk to the staff, feed that feedback back to staff, and work with them in dialogue using the framework to bring them back to what's really important and enjoyable in their practice. Gave a detailed and insightful look at the changeable nature of student and staff engagement. This is not something that stands still. You can't draw a line around it. It's not like a photograph. It is constantly moving. So just some quick whistle-stop findings here. Presence is not engagement. Just because you're in the room doesn't mean I've engaged you. Doesn't mean you're engaged. There's more to it than that. Is a subtle complexity. I can alienate many people by doing what I'm doing as well as engage them. Okay, so you've got to be mindful of the individuals, as Neil mentioned this morning. Quite interesting, the topic, the students, they said, well, the best learning was when we interacted and we collaborated with staff. So some interesting insight there, and derive the biggest value from the finer details. So it's little things like getting them involved, asking their opinion. This was all a valued output of this particular project. And this is key. It's good to talk. Dialogue was the key. Dialogue, not just with myself and staff, with this framework, but also with the students. So it's good to talk. It deconstructed the us and them relationship. The academic, traditional academic relationship with students is very much me, the expert, the lecturer, lecturing forth to you, the empty vessel that needs to be filled. Okay, so we deconstructed that a little bit. Just for the purpose of today, I want to focus on the middle one there. The efficacy deficit of many academic staff to be creative. The staff I work with had very little creative confidence in changing their practice. They'd done the same thing from 5 to even 25 years, so change wasn't going to be easy. But working with them over the period of the academic year, it actually empowered staff to be the change in their own practice. So rather than looking for permission from the outside, it was from the inside and having the ability, the perceived ability to go on and do that. So what we've actually done in the second iteration of this programme is actually worked to develop a curriculum that we've coined. It's based on this notion of the jigsaw module. It's a shameless plug of Aronson's work of the jigsaw classroom, any educational scholars in the room. So it's not purely our own work, but it's the concept, it captures the concept. Jigsaw co-built, if you like, co-constructed, in partnership with students, and dialogue being the vehicle. So open dialogue with students, using the poet, as you have in front of you, as a cooperative educational strategy, starting with the experiential knowledge of students and staff. So starting from an open source as opposed to a closed source. This is what we're doing whether you like it or not. This is what you're going to be doing over the next 15 weeks. We start from a very open-ended position. Students set out in collaboration with staff everything from the configuration of learning outcomes and assessment tasks to the style of delivery, which was quite interesting, and classroom-based activities. There needed to be some structure, as Neil said this morning. We couldn't just go have fun, because things wouldn't get done, and QA would murder me. Okay, so what we did was, okay, there's certain things, your education has to exist in some form, okay, you're here to do a degree after all. So the learning outcomes and assessment criteria were set. They have to be set for it to exist. We couldn't really play around with that too much because of QA and the accountability that we have in higher education today. But we can work with that as a frame of reference to create a way of working, and that's pretty much where we went. So it's about creating a structured system for communication, which would be the centre of the 3 environmental features there. Okay, so support and opportunity. This is a structured system of communication. So we had blogs, discussion boards, course journals, coupled with regular individual and group reflection mapping exercises across what ended up being 5 courses. So that's 7 members of staff and over 200 students. So this concept of the jigsaw module was picked up across 5 different, it was a buy-in by all staff, if you like, who had been involved in the previous project. So it's to collaboratively establish content, rationale and structure for the module. Each module, I'm not going to go too specifically about subject matter and content, but using the stated learning outcomes to draw a line around that. The basic premise was to offer students an alternative mediative dialogue, a way of looking at their learning, something that probably hadn't done before. It must be mentioned, we didn't go in at level 1 here, first year students, because they hadn't, they just wouldn't be able to handle this. They need that foundational knowledge. We were dealing from level 2, which is now 5 and 6, so second and final year students, because they've got a better feel of how they learn, whether they know it or not. So we went in at level 2 and not level 1 here. Okay? So it's to empower students to engage with and explore their own learning orientation, something that they won't have dealt with before. Okay. Do you know, I knew it was going to do that. Stop the clock. There you go. Okay. Why does that? Okay, so just to give an idea, this grew. This was very an ecological model, if you like, grew over time. From students started off on wanting structure to, you tell me what I need to do and tell us what I'm going to have to do for my assessments and so on and so forth, to deconstructing that over time, being a very open educational experience for everybody, including staff. So it's an iterative process which basically went through this process here, construction of what it is we were going to do. Then they were formatively assessed on the subject matter that we were dealing with. We reviewed that, we deconstructed it, again, using the principles that you have in front of you as a mediator for that dialogue. So focusing on what's important, focusing on what's enjoyable, and then reconstructed it. They were then summatively assessed on the subject matter using the means that they reconstructed, if you like, and then they evaluated it. This is the process we went through 3 times on each unit. It's important for student commitment that they had something at stake, so that's the reason why we formed this around assessments, because we're more likely to focus on what's important. It's not a straightforward process, it's guided discovery, not total freedom. Yeah, so this offered us a way of getting into dialogue about what's enjoyable, what's effective for them in terms of engagement, in terms of learning. It takes time, something we don't have a lot of. Okay, but we deal with University of Bedfordshire in 20-week modules, so we have greater flexibility. I realise that than 15 weeks for most modules, but there's still some inherent flexibility in that. It's non-linear, and this is what staff don't like. They like to know that they're going to do this, that, this, then that, and they're going to end up here. This is non-linear. It's organic. It's ecological. It also brings up the paradox of personalisation. We hear this time mention the metaphors of student-centred learning. Well, actual fact, students, when we started out on this project, didn't want anything to do with personalising learning, they just wanted to be told. So it's very much that tunnel vision, fast learning that they were interested in. Well, actually, there wasn't a willingness to challenge yourself. Risky learning is not something that they're willing to do, particularly when, from this September onwards, they're going to be paying £9,000. I don't want to risk anything in my learning. I want you to be able to tell me what I need to do. So there's an efficacy deficit, not just in staff, but in students. So all of a sudden, we're working in an environment where there is no creative confidence. We're scared to take risks. But what these projects has shown is, well, it's led to some practice innovations for our staff. So, for example, we've moved, as a course team, from lecture seminars, which are generally 2 hours, to this year we've been running 3-hour workshops. We don't have lecture seminars anymore. Quite controversial, but 3-hour workshops gives us greater flexibility and scope to explore stuff. Yeah, and also allow for that structure to be co-set with students. Okay, so I realise that's not possible for everybody. Okay, but this was a team effort, if you like. Assessment, so panel discussions, argumentation, and dialogue were considered to be an important skill to be assessed. Yeah. I don't know if any of my graduates were about to write a 5,000-word essay on Habermas 3 years after graduation. Okay, so it's the relevance of what we do. So that was something else. And open educational resources. All the resources most of the resources we provide our students are actually co-created with them. So we're doing things like blogs, wikis. They're actually blogging lecture notes at the time of lectures. we've got this kind of blended learning approach with the students who have initiated themselves. I'm going to have to stretch off, I think, I'm knackered. So what we've actually developed, inadvertently, it wasn't the outcome, the goal, if you like, but we've created what's, in essence, a sustainable curriculum renewal here. Because we're going to have a different cohort of students next year on each of those units and courses, each bringing their own baggage in terms of their experiences of life and what they're here to learn about, what they already learned from doing various things. So what's going to happen next year? We don't know, and this is what's really exciting. It excites me, it scared the living daylights out of some of my colleagues, because they like to be able to plan and structure their time. Like I said, there is some structure there. It's not all about just handing complete control over to students. But what will happen next year? Well, what I can say is a lack of planning has been planned for. Okay, it has actually been written into and revalidated with a lot of fighting into the majority of the units that we're now working with. One of the learning outcomes is the co-creation of the curriculum with students. Okay, so they've actually been assessed on that. So it's engaging with their own orientation. Okay, so just quickly, 2 more slides. We're good?
We're real tight.
Yeah, so that's what I like to hear. Live on the edge. Okay, so when we're talking about pedagogy, I don't want to get too hung up on the notion of pedagogy as teaching and learning. It's a social pedagogy. By this I mean it's a social responsibility. It's a function of each social setting. So each module has a different feel because it's a different cohort of students and a different member of staff. It's not constrained by discipline because it's co-created. It's learning mediated through dialogue, okay? So it's optimal engagement, and I don't mean optimal in the sense that it's a utopian state of engagement brought only on by drugs. It's something that we take seriously. It's a personal commitment of self. It's something we are deeply passionate about. Creates resonances between individuals and activities and settings. It's deeply enjoyable. And it's transformational in the sense that it ushers new ways of looking and seeing and a creative orientation towards learning. So my question to you guys are you poets? You might not know it. Excuse me. Okay. I did say to my wife, I get that in, tick. Okay, so this is just something food for thought. So I want you to take what you have away with you, okay? So you've got your postcards, okay? If I'm going to ask permission, actually, improvisation, which is if you are happy with me having your drawings or notes, I would love to take them away and look at what you've come up with. Hopefully you can remember what you've written down, okay? The idea is that you've actually, what I'm trying to do is focus, get you thinking about something that you maybe haven't thought about too much in the past. And what am I really enjoying in my work, and what does that look like? How can I feed that into the poet? Now that would be fed into that first one there. So focus on enjoyment. So start there. That's your experiential knowledge. That's where you start. I want you to take this away, okay, and have a think. I don't mind if you stick it on your wall and stare at it. I don't mind if you actually try some new things out. But what I would really, and there's 20 of you, 20 very special people in the room who actually have stamps on the back. I think that the department won't fork out for 50 stamps, you can imagine. I honestly don't mind if you steam them off, by the way, using yourselves. Stamps are very expensive these days. The idea is, I want to slow you down, okay? It's very easy for me to go, email me your feedback. It's immediate, and we want immediate feedback. I'm going to get some in a minute. I'm going to want to slow you down. Give it some thought. Contemplate, reflect. Does this apply to your work? I don't mind if it doesn't. Food for thought. Draw, note down, or whatever on the back here. Send it back to me. Okay? I don't care whether it's 6 days or 6 weeks, 6 months. I don't care if you don't. Hopefully it's given you food for thought. But please, please, please try and send this back. I'd be really interested in your thoughts. More immediately, some food for thought for me, just first impressions from what I've had to say today. It's been very whistle-stop, I do realise that, and if you're knackered, so am I. But there are some post-its on your rows. If you could, just note down some quick thoughts. Okay, keep them anonymous. I don't mind if you don't put your name next to them. And stick them onto your 2 squares in a circle. And I'll take those up when we finish the next session. Okay? Thank you very much.